going to show you how to cut a two-part stencil. And I have my stencil design here printed out. I'm going to do these little skulls. And what I want to do is do a skull-shaped opening so that I can paint white, and then do openings for the black that I can lay on afterwards. So I'm going to try and cut this all in one, and I printed two just in case I do a bad job with the first one. But I've done this sort of thing before, and I think it'll be okay. And I also have here a craft knife with a new blade in it. You always want to use sharp blades when you're cutting. And I think I'm going to start right here and conquer this big curve first. Very often when the piece is curved, it's easier to curve the paper than it is to curve the knife. So you just hold the knife down and move the paper. I'm going to try and get this piece cut out all in one so that I can use what remains for the second part of my stencil. I'm going to move down to these teeth. I'm going to cut all the lines that go in one direction. So now I have my basic skull shape, and then I have this piece that came out of it, and I'm going to cut the nose and the eyes so that I have holes where I can paint them in using this second part of the stencil. So now that I have these pieces cut out, I can flip it over, and any sort of rough edges or pieces of paper that are sticking out because the cut wasn't perfectly smooth, I can clean up. So now I have a two-part stencil that I need to test. So I'm just going to lay my stencil over this black cardstock, and you'll notice that I've drawn a 1 and a 2 on my stencils, and that's so that I know which side is the right side. Even though I can sort of still see the black lines that I cut on, I want to make sure that I lay them down in the right direction. So just got some white acrylic. Let's see if that works for this. I'm not planning to use this stencil on black. Planning to use it on a painted surface, but I figured I'd test it on this scrap of black. And I'm not just holding down the stencil. I don't have it taped on the back side. That might be a good idea if I was doing my finished piece with this. That looks pretty good. It's a little oozy, but these pieces are going to be really loose. And now I can lay my second piece over the white. And apply a little black. There we go. There's my skeleton. And in my finished ones, I think what I'm going to do is draw around the outside to give it a nice crisp black line. And when I do that, I'm going to go ahead and draw in the lines in between the teeth because I don't think that these are quite strong enough. But they give me enough of a guideline that I can just enhance the detail with a pen and it will look just fine. Now I'm going to use my skull stencil on these stickers that I'm doing for a swap, and I'm going to use this smaller piece to position the stencil where I want it to go. So kind of want it on an angle and roughly in the center. And now I can just lay this other piece on top of it and then pull this out, and my skull will be positioned where I want it without having to measure. I'm just using a little bit of gesso and a sponge to do this, but you can stencil with just about anything. There are actually paints designed for stenciling that are oil-based usually, and they come in a very sort of stiff cream that you have to tap on just the way I'm tapping this on with my sponge. There. And it's not perfect. There's some areas around here and the teeth aren't coming across very well, but again, I'm going to come back after this dries and lay this on top, and I can draw in the outline and the teeth with a pen while the stencil is in place. Now that this white is dry, I'm going to take the second part of the stencil and lay it over the top and kind of try to line it up as best as I can. When the stencil bleeds, the first stencil bleeds, it makes a white area that's slightly larger than this smaller stencil. So I just want to line it up so it's pretty close. And then I'm going to really loosely trace around this. Kind of scribbling around the outside edge. Except for right here, where I'm going to be very precise about my outlining so that I get nice crisp teeth rather than the mush that was left behind by the original stencil. This black will give the teeth a little bit of definition. And then, just for fun, I'm going to scribble along the edge a little bit, maybe over here, maybe a little over here. And now, it's sort of a crisper skull shape to work with. And I can line it up again. a little bit of black and fill in the 3 open areas. And I did this with paint, but I could just as easily do it with a Sharpie or, you know, something a little bit bolder. So probably when this dries, I'm going to come back and do some more coloring on top of it. I think I might add a flower up here on the skull, and I might do a little outlining and scribbling on the 3 open areas.